What's going on, Commonwealth, and welcome back to another great episode of the Bluegrass Soccer Guest, your home for all things soccer, right here in the beautiful Commonwealth of Kentucky. I'm, of course, Mr. Jimmy. That's Mr. John. John, how are we doing today, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. How's the cough from what was it, 2 weeks ago?
It's fine. It's just existing now. It's not as bad as it was.
Sometimes existing is just enough, right?
Mhm.
John, random icebreaker question of the day. Would you join a community in space if it was permanent? So a permanent move to space or no, John?
I think that would depend on the stage.
Mm.
Like I
So if
could
it's like a
not,
city already?
if it's already developed and that sort of thing, I can just kind of show up and like kind of just find a job, that type of thing. I was like, no, you gotta like be an early farmer or settler
Mm.
type thing. I could not do that.
Yeah, no, I could not do that either. Also, that is an odd random generated question. I'm kind of with you. Like if it's a settlement or something like that that's already established and I'm just going there for like retirement, okay, sure, why not? Let's have fun. Let's go be off-worlders. But if it's like you're an astronaut having to go figure it out, nah, I'm good. I also don't like heights, so that would be a problem.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
have a window seat.
True, that's what I do on an airplane. I always sit in the aisle.
I don't know how. That's the most annoying part to sit in.
What, the aisle? I get one
I,
leg I can stretch out then until they roll the cart through for service and I have to like pin it
Exactly.
in.
Cart through, you get the person trying to get their stuff up from like the thing. Oh, it's so annoying.
Hmm, I'm a middle or an aisle seat kind of guy. But John, with all of that out of the way, let's go on and jump on into things here. So to start this week, of course, you know where we're gonna go, off the top. And John, I want to play a little bit of a game this week called Will They, Won't They? And we're going to be talking about will they, won't they make the playoffs or not? And I want to go on and start and get this first one out of the way because it's the one that I think we can officially say no shot.
Well,
Lexington
they've
Sporting Club.
been statistically eliminated.
Oh, they have. Okay. I
Yeah,
thought so, but I was under the
they got statistically eliminated when they lost to the Red Wolves.
impression. So, yes, they're not going to make the playoffs. However, and we'll break down this week's action here in just a little bit. But I do want to say, like, to me, the rest of the season is more about what can Nacho get out of this team and just how many points can they accumulate, right?
Well, I think the rest of the season is what we saw on Saturday.
Yep.
Is play more youth centric, which they did. That
Mm-hmm.
was the first. Causey was back in goal for the first time since April. It was the first match that Fox has not started in. So Fox had been the only player to start every single match. Granted,
Right.
he appeared later, so he still has that streak of playing in every single game going. But he did not start. We started a much younger back line. Yes, there was Cesar in there, and Cesar is a little older, but there was Chea and Jackson. Um, but it was playing the youth and seeing how they do. Um, that's how we should be moving forward. I'm hopeful. We saw a lot. Drew Patterson got some good minutes in that match too. So I'm hopeful to see how this goes. For those who didn't notice, because if you're the backup keeper, you're basically not noticed. Luke Knight wasn't in the 18 at all. Luke Phillips got his first official. Is that a cap?
I would say it's a cap when if
I'm
you're
not
out there
sure.
playing.
I'm not fully sure how caps work because I've seen stuff about like being in the game, or I've seen stuff like being on the available roster is a cap. Like I think there's appearances and then there's caps. It's kind of weird, but I think by definition he got his first ever professional cap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, being in the 18 as the backup keeper in that matchup. um, so I'm curious to see if we see him at all. This matchup against North Carolina is going to be interesting, which I'll speak more on Wednesday about it. But it's, are we going to see the youth? How is that going to develop? The fact that it took till 4 matches to go for us to be statistically eliminated, and even then, if that match had gone our way, we wouldn't have been. At least at that point.
Right.
So I think that's good. That's a
Yeah.
good start, especially because if you looked at all the like USL tactics and all that type of stuff at the beginning of this year, Lexington had like 0% chance of making the playoffs, highest percent chance to finish dead last in the league, and all this type of stuff. And we still have a chance to finish like 10th because the Red Bulls have had 2 straight wins. So they're a point behind us. But overall, I think finishing 9th or 10th, I think finishing anything above last is good.
Yes. And that's what I was going to say. Like, I think there might be a chance that they can finish in 9th. It would be very unlikely. But I still think there is a small chance. Best case scenario, you finish in 9th. Worst case, you finish in 11th because I don't think there's any way they're getting to 12th. I just don't think, what's his name? Fuego can gain that many points.
Fuego has officially earned the wooden spoon.
Oh, I saw that, and I absolutely loved
they
it.
Are statistically, it's statistically impossible. Because let me look at the. It's they. I believe they're at least 6 points out.
Don't get any splinters with that spoon.
They are
Fuego.
8 points. They are 8 points away from Richmond. So
yeah, no shot.
Like it's
with 2 games.
There's Richmond and Lexington and Chattanooga are in this little pack. There's
and
Fuego.
Knoxville's still above them. That could fall still.
Well, yeah, Knoxville could still fall, but there's a 6 point difference.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Fuego, 8 points, little pack of teams within 5 points of each other, 4 or 5 points of each other, 6 points, and then there's Knoxville and Tormenta, which Tormenta has kind of separated themselves from Knoxville. Knoxville's in this weird kind of middle thing because they're 6 points above Lex, but 4 points off of Tormenta. So they're in this weird kind of in between sphere. And then it's Tormenta, who's now only 2 points off of the playoffs. With Charlotte secured it, and Greenville and Madison are both only 2 points ahead of Tormenta.
Right. And, I think not finishing in last as an expansion team is a good result, right? Like, yeah, do you want to make the playoffs? Yes. Do you want to make a competitive team? Yes. But you're not the worst team. Not even close.
Competitive.
Yes, they were very competitive all year.
Like, and even Fuego, as bad as they are, have been competitive for at least bits of the season. They have been.
Lexington fans know all about that.
Well, I'm not even saying it necessarily a Lexington game. Like they had a thriller against Madison. They've gotten what? It's not a lot, but they've still gotten 5 wins and 5 draws in 30 matches. So that's at least a third of their season. They've played decent enough. Yes, that's still terrible, technically speaking.
But that's what I was going to say. You beat me to
But they've played decent, and their goal differential is negative 25.
That's so many.
But they've scored 3 less goals than Knoxville.
So they're not far off, really.
Yeah, their offense is okay. Their defense is really bad. They've been playing with a backup keeper all year. Their main keeper got hurt. It's just, this is what happens when in third division soccer in a closed system. It's super wonky, especially with how the U.S. system is, because there's 3 leagues.
Yep.
Granted, I would say USL 1, and it's hard to measure it, but I would say USL 1's kind of the best, because MLS Next Pro is more a development league,
Mm-hmm.
You could argue USL 1 is too, um,
But it is still professional.
the purpose of MLS Next is to literally give B-side squad players playing time
Yep.
against other B-side squad MLS players. It's literally a minor league system. Like
Yeah,
there's no like
that's how it's designed.
even if US Soccer opens the pyramid and MLS joins that open pyramid, the MLS Next teams are not joining that.
Mm-mm.
They
No
technically
way.
could, but they're going to stay where they're at. They can't go any higher if they follow the models of Europe.
Speaking of MLS Next teams, I wasn't even going to bring this up. I went to Chattanooga for the first time, took a group of students on Friday, and I counted. I saw 5 different soccer fans, somebody in a t shirt or something, right? 3 of them had on Chattanooga FC. 2 of them were international. 0 Red Wolves fans. So if you're a Red
Which is
Wolves fan
weird
out
because
there, find your people, make your pack, and get shown, because I don't believe you exist anymore.
the Red Wolves do average decent numbers.
I don't believe it. Can't that stadium
I'm
is
just
terrible.
saying with what they produce numbers
Right.
wise. Now people can make arguments about sports attendance numbers all they want.
Right.
Um,
Very true.
but by what the data we have, in which I tell everybody who tells me this, well, that's not true. Show me other data, and I will follow it. I'm not just going to
Yep.
follow some guy's random thing.
Absolutely.
The data we have, Chattanooga draw decent. Right around where Lex does even higher. Chattanooga FC, I'm very curious if they do become an MLS Next team, because that's still kind of wishy-washy
Well, I thought it was
right now.
official.
From when it first hit, it sounded like it was basically official, but then there's kind of been nothing about it since that. So some people are like, what if that was just them exploring options and that someone leaked like, oh, they're in talks. So it's still up for debate, but I don't see Chattanooga FC surviving if they do it as like this like cult following of a club. If they do go to MLS Next Pro, because they're also unique. They formed 10 years before the Red Wolves. They were like one of the initial clubs to really jump on that like social media train.
They
That
were
we've
the
seen a lot.
blueprint for the clubs.
They were a blueprint for a small team.
Mm-hmm.
Like other minor league teams that have existed in baseball and hockey for years have followed their model of social media, where you just kind of go on this thing that's kind of like weird and not like fully professional in a sense.
Yeah.
That gets you followers. We've seen this with like Wendy's Twitter account and stuff like that, because if you just do what every other company is doing, you're not unique. And then they did these unique stuff, especially on Facebook, apparently. And they gained a lot of followers that way. So that's how they did it. And they actually play in Chattanooga proper, which, yes, Lexington does not play in Lexington proper. They're going to with their permanent stadium, but the Red Bulls' permanent stadium is in Eastridge. But as a whole, this league is weird. And it's hard to judge where things are at, because North Carolina, yes, you can make the argument they did all this because they're prepping for that jump. North Carolina dropped from the championship and then sucked for 2 years. They were terrible in the league, and now they're battling for the Players' Shield. They still haven't secured it yet, but they're battling for it. So,
well, I think kind of to wrap up the Lexington portion of our game here. I think Lexington, most importantly to me, was really, really good at home. And John, I know that you saw the majority of that. 6 wins, only 3 losses, 6 draws at home. I thought that was really good, and I agree with what you said. Kind of in relation to the rest of the season. I just want to see the young core continue to get time and continue to play.
Yeah,
Any
they were
kind of
only.
go for
Let's put it this way: they were only 9 points off of Charlotte, who are the best team at home.
it. Yeah,
They have one less loss than Charlotte. So literally, if 4 draws turned wins for Lexington, they are on par with Charlotte and Omaha for the best record at home.
which would put them in the playoffs, right? Or at least put them closer to it.
If those 4 wins, yes, they have those 4 wins go their way, Lexington is sitting. If those 4 draws turn into wins, that's what 12 points instead of
4.
4, so that's 8 extra points. They would be in 8th right now if everything else went the same way. I'm not doing the math of trying to take other people's
Yeah,
points away, but they would be sitting around the playoff line, a lot closer to the playoff line than they are right now. And I think that's what people need to understand. Overall, yes, they're 7, 10, and 13. But overall, that means 4 more games have had positive results or points from them than you've had no points, as much as like having 13 losses sucks. Um, we have the same amount of losses as Tormenta, who are about to get in the playoffs. We only have 3 less losses than Greenville, only 2 more than Knox. You could argue the Knox games going their way could flip the table.
it
Um,
absolutely would.
Yeah, but that's just what I'm saying is like, when it comes down to do 5 games go your way instead of going the other way in the sense of a draw or a loss, and you're a playoff team that's good. For Fuego, you take 5 games and do that. There's only at 10 wins,
Yeah,
and
still not even close.
that's not that much. They're at 10 wins, 15 losses, still.
Yeah,
So, and that's where I think you could chalk stuff up to luck. I do believe in a 32 game schedule, about a third. This is in Prem, this is anything. A third is luck. Of all
yeah,
the
I could
results
see
are
that.
luck.
I could see that.
The
Yep.
Greenville draw, luck for Greenville. Our comeback win over NoCo, that's luck our way.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Wolves' first win over us, those 2 goals, any of their quick goals, they did it to us 3 times. Luck, kind of. I think quick goals are like when you get back-to-back goals, it's really hard for me to judge if it's luck or you're just capitalizing on something. The Knoxville going up a man and that guy getting a curling shot and luck. Like a lot of this stuff you could chalk up. Heck, you could chalk up that Madison game to luck because they scored
Yeah.
2 goals off of Causey. The first one, Causey was gathering in, it just slipped through his arms, and the guy made a good run in. And then the other one, the guy chipped it perfectly around Causey, right to another player's head. So you could chalk that to a win if Diouf and Jackson still get their goals. Granted, the game's a little different if those goals don't happen, but it's just these tiny little things that just lead to, I would say, a third of it is luck. But that means if a third of it is luck, you have to make the other 2/3 go your way.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least half of the time go your way, and hope the other half is good and you have some good luck.
And I think they've set the standard. You've got a good baseline to jump off for next year. You got a pretty good roster, very competitive. You can make some additions in the off season, and you can easily find yourself, like you said there, John, with a couple of more victories, and then boom, you're right there in the playoff conversation.
I'm really curious just how many players get brought back if they do, and all that type of stuff. I'm curious at how many loyal players, where the San Diego loyal players go, because that's 25 players. Yes, you can make the argument they're probably going to stay in the championship, but I feel like some are going to come down.
Yeah,
Um,
you would think.
uh, but then there's also what players are going to go up in the league
Mm-hmm.
because I
Like
don't think
Duke, does
Trevor.
he go up?
I like, and I've said this. I've kind of come to terms with you not being here next year
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of he's too good. Trevor
I think
Amin.
he would look great in purple.
I don't know if
Stay in the
we'll see
state,
about
slide
that.
on over.
Trevor Amin, however they say his name. He's the
Oh,
record setter at Northern Colorado. He definitely shouldn't be back unless they have him on a multi-year deal. Even then, sell him.
right. You might need that
Um,
cash.
yeah, Delgado for Noco shouldn't be back. Pack shouldn't be back with Charlotte. He should be making them jump up. Like there's just all these different things. How long is Don Smart going to play? Because he's going to be entering 36 next year, and that is right around where, especially field players, outfield players, start to retire. 36, 38. You might see some old, but does he maybe not retire? But how much does he actually play a full 90? And we've kind of seen that. So
It's played
I'm
out this
very
year. He hasn't played a full 90 in what, a couple of weeks at least,
yeah.
right?
So I'm curious to how that applies, and I'm curious to how many players are truly rentals. Like I, Bucks fans, do not be surprised if a player didn't get that many minutes and he's a little older if he's not coming back. Um, just plain simple, especially if they haven't gotten in the 18 much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just that sort of thing. Like, what is it going to be? This league has a lot of turnover. That's why you see Cesar and Don Smart and Owen Green have all played for. Nico has played in this league prior. They've all played for different teams. Cesar and Don Smart have both played for. This is their third or fourth USL one team in 5 years, and that's not because they're bad. It's just
No.
that's turnover. Like I think Tormenta is really the only club that's like kept players around. Like their thing is multi-year, and I think Lexington is sort of in that sense of like Tormenta from all the stuff Stockley's been saying. But there's a sense of the core.
Right.
They're not going to keep around 15 guys unless that 15 is their core. Like they truly developed a full core of here's our 11, here's our and then here's our like four or five main subs that we're going to use. We'll have these fringe youth players or vets as well, our backup keeper too. But here's our main guys. Let's run with it.
Well, let's enjoy the last two games. You only get one inaugural season, so let's enjoy it. Let's make sure that we go out, we support the team. They do have one more home game and one more road game, so make sure that you go out, support Lexington. They may not make the playoffs, but hey, still a good time to be had, right? But let's move up the kind of rankings here of who is in, who's out. And John, flat out going to ask, Racing Louisville, are they going to make it or are they not?
Oh, it's tight. So they are eight.
I have a definitive answer.
They are 4 points out. They're
Yes.
playing Orlando, who's not in the
Yep.
playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
so that might not fully help them. Um, but it could still, if 3 wins, the 3 points can still go a long way. And then they
Yeah,
play
but
San Diego.
Orlando with 3 points could jump up into a tie for six.
They could, but
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. They're not out of it yet. They're 4 points out, which means theoretically they only need a win and a draw in these next two.
Right.
They need two
Chaos.
wins. They need 2 wins. And they are playing a playoff team
Mm-hmm.
in San Diego
Yep.
for their
On the
last
road.
game, who is pretty much secured.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they might be able to get a win there. Because I don't think San Diego is going to go all out in that.
No.
Because they've also pretty much, well, they haven't necessarily secured the shield. But
Right.
I don't.
They're 1 point clear
see.
right now.
We'll see. And this is my thing with like Lex versus North Carolina on Saturday. So we'll see what they're going to do. Just do they care about the the player shield really, or whatever it's called in the NWSL, or are they more we want the championship? The shield's nice, but we want the championship. Like not every team can be like FC Cincinnati and secure it well before the end. So now there's no Cincinnati has it, so they can truly coast if they want to. I can't lose the
I wouldn't
shield.
blame them. Yeah.
But like, if you're still battling for that, do you do that? Do you battle for the shield, or you're more like, I want health in the playoffs. I want my top people to be ready to go.
Well, because
I
it's
can see
also
both
home field
sides for
advantage,
it.
right? Like you
It's
would get
home field
home field in that,
advantage,
that final.
but they would have to. They're still top 3.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
even if they
it's
drop,
curious.
they would still be 3.
Yeah. So that and North and here's the thing: they're top 3, and Portland and Gotham face each other this weekend. So they are almost guaranteed top 3 because they're facing North Carolina, who's in it but not necessarily. So it's going to be chaos. It's going to be chaos. These next 2 weeks are going to be absolute chaos in the NWSL. The question is, will they? Racing has to capitalize on Orlando. They have to. This is like their must win. Same with Orlando is going into this with a must win mentality. If they don't win it, they're done. They're just done. So we'll see. They have to fight. They have to battle for it. They can't just what after that good big old win over Portland. They've dropped to Houston. They haven't scored a goal.
Yeah, they've really, really struggled.
And it's not with bad. It's not actually like bad defense. It's the defense can't do everything.
Right. Defense can't continue to bail you out when your offense is non-existent at times, right?
Yeah.
Well,
so,
John, I feel pretty definitive with this one. Like, I don't see any chance of Racing Louisville getting into the playoffs. I'm sorry. It's been a great season. I think best case scenario, you finish in 7th. Worst case scenario, and you lose the last 2, you finish in dead last in 12th. I think this match with Orlando this weekend at home will go a long way to determine where they're going to finish. Because I agree, I think that match with San Diego very easily could be a road win if we go all out and they are kind of resting players or whatever. So I think it comes down to, can we beat Orlando at home in the last home game of the season, and then roll the dice next week at San Diego. By the way, we are at 2-2 for the U of L UMKC game. U of L has really had to fight back in this one. But back to racing here. Losing those last 2 in a row just absolutely killed any momentum that they had. And it's completely taken their chances of making the playoffs out of their hands. Yes, as John said, they're only 4 points back out of 6. And they're only 2 points ahead of 12th. So this is going to be a big game for both Orlando and Racing. Orlando is just 1 point clear of Racing, but if they get the road victory, they're going to really jump up in the table potentially, because 3 more points for them would put them tied for 6th. So it's a close race. I'm going to be interested to see what happens this weekend, because if Racing shows up, maybe they have a chance, but I just don't. I don't think it's going to happen.
It's going to be interesting because it also, I think, will have impacts on how the roster is going to look next year.
Absolutely. There's no way all of these World Cup stars are coming back if we're not in the playoffs.
Well, no, they're expanding, right? Are they adding 2 teams next year?
No, that I am not up on. Let me.
That's what I'm checking. Research. Because I know they have 3 teams coming.
Mm-hmm.
uh, like Boston's being re-added and stuff like that. Oh, there's so many teams, so much rumored. But with expansion coming and uh, the Super League coming, I'm very curious to how the whole end of the roster aspect's going to go. I'm curious, is the Super League going to chase after those stars? Do the owners have the power to bring in Themby, to bring in I forget her name, but like, does the Super League have that power? Or is it the Super League gonna more get the fringe bench players that want playing time? So it's gonna be very curious because I also diminish it. The Super League is going to diminish the depth of the NWSL, which I think will take away from the chaos element into it. The part of the chaos element is the NWSL is the best league in the Western Hemisphere.
They are.
They're a top 5 league. You can make arguments about the FA Women's Super League and the La Liga Feminal, but they are the best league. They're a top 3 league in the world, and they only have 12 teams. So that's
So
really top heavy. That's
uh,
really like mixing and competitive.
it is like, and where those players choose to go is going to make the difference, right? But so just doing some very quick googling. Don't know how reliable this source is, but I am seeing next year for 24, the Utah Royals are planning to return, as well as Bay FC, which is in San Jose / San
That's right.
Francisco Bay Area.
Those are the ones that So there's the league is going to go to at least 14 next year.
Yep.
I'm curious to how that affects the playoffs because you can't do 17
Half the league
teams.
makes it.
Well, the half the league makes it now. You can't do 7
Well,
teams
true.
in the playoffs unless you give the first team a bye,
Bye.
which is what
Maybe.
the USL 1 does. The top 2 teams get a bye.
And then in 25, three more potentials. Boston, which we know, and then Denver and Cleveland also heavily rumored.
So that moves it to 17.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this league is expanding rapidly, and you have the Super League. It's going to be very curious to what happens to it. From all I've heard, the Super League is going to be treated as like a 1A type thing. It's definitely not going to be considered top, but I'm curious to the pockets of the Super League and stuff. I
There's
don't
a
think it's
whole lot of rumors.
well, and that's the thing with women's soccer. And that's the thing with women's soccer is like there's people who want to invest and they're willing to like feel out the market, but there's a lot more feeling out the market with women's soccer than there is with men's.
Right. Like, literally, I'm just going to list the teams that are kind of rumored, right? Atlanta, New England, but in Connecticut, not in Foxborough. Austin, Texas, Toronto, Cincinnati, Minnesota, Oakland, Philadelphia, Miami, um, Pittsburgh, another New York City team, Minnesota, Indianapolis, Dallas, Barcelona. They were
Well,
supposed to have a team in LA at one point.
Dallas is interesting because there's a Super League team going to Dallas or Fort Worth area.
Well, I just want to be very clear. I'm not reporting anything. There's no publicity that is officially announced a bid,
Well,
but just a rumor.
it's this stuff with all the Super League stuff, or any soccer, USL, MLS not so much because of how big the price tag is right now. I feel like every time, because in our Discord we have a bot that posts the
Mm-hmm.
Reddit stuff. I feel like every other day I see something about this team, this city with a
Yeah.
team. I was like, what is your basis? Oh, I saw something about I saw a USL truck in Paducah, Kentucky. Is a team
Hey.
coming? Like, no, it could just be like the company truck just happened to be in the city. Y'all need to relax. Like,
Uh,
it gives me like living in Kentucky. It gives me like Kentucky basketball esque stuff about any player under the sun type thing.
you are very right on Dallas. Clicked on a couple other sources here. Dallas officially announced in May 23 that they are going to do a USL Super League team. Same for Indianapolis. Where else did I see that? Phoenix.
And it's also weird with the USL and NWSL because you have
Mm-hmm.
teams like Racing and like the North
Oakland.
Carolina Courage and like Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Oakland's on a NWSL team right now.
No, I was saying they're another team that's got the
I'm
USL Super
saying
League.
the NWSL teams that have W League teams,
Oh, Roger,
like
Roger.
affiliate. You have North
Mm-hmm.
Carolina, um, you have Racing and stuff affiliate. I don't know if that's just because like North Carolina and Louisville are also partnered with male USL teams, and this is their way of developing leagues and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And do they have to cut it off once the Super League starts? Like, does Racing's W League team turn into Lou City W League because of the Super League? I don't think it will happen, but because that'd be really weird having a developmental team with a organization that's technically your rival.
Yeah, but like it could
I
be
don't
interesting.
I don't see it being cut off because I don't think the
No,
NWSL is at the point where they can shut the door on that.
no,
It's gonna it'd be bad PR in
very.
general. I think it's like, and I think any team. I've been debating writing an article. I think any team that doesn't field in, I've said this last week. Any team that doesn't field an academy or like even attempt to field a W League side, it's bad look. I don't care what your arguments are. It's like you're choosing not to develop. You're choosing not to bring anything into it, and you can make an argument you do camps, but that's much different.
Yeah, way
Um,
different. Way different. Not even really in the same conversation as having multiple teams, right?
yeah, and that you can do partnerships, and there's ways that you can go in without disrupting the youth landscape.
I
But like,
guess.
there is ways you could,
Mm-hmm.
but like, there's no Lexington didn't like just drop an academy in the middle of. They literally they
They
went
bought them
shy.
all.
Well, no, to be fair, Shively was like the head or a board member of one, and you
Mm-hmm.
buddies. They were like friends with the other, and he just went, "I'm bringing this thing in. Do you just want to combine?" And they did because they both agreed it was better.
Yeah, it
Like,
is better.
people don't understand. Like, the USL has a whole wing called the USL Academy, where all the USL is caring about in that section is developing talent. Like, it's much more focused than whatever MLS is doing and stuff.
Yeah. Well, in the end, I think racing, great season. Very much looking forward to kind of breaking down both Lexington
Well,
and Louisville at the end of the season. But in my
racing is
opinion,
make or break. This game is
I
make
don't
or
think it
break.
matters.
If they draw, it's out. Like, it's win or you're done.
I don't expect them to win. I'm sorry. They've played. Remember
First,
the game
first
from a
you
couple of
curse them.
weeks ago?
First you curse them, and now you're like nothing. They got
Yep,
no shot.
nothing. No shot. Nope. Let's see
I
if
don't
it
know if
works
you're
this
trying
way.
to do reverse psychology or you genuinely are like, nah, they're done.
Hey, I did take a sports fan psychology class in college, so we'll see if it works. So then, with that, let's pivot to the boys who are in. Confirmed, definitely. Lou City, yes, you are making the playoffs, but what is the seed going to be? That's the big question, right? They're in a very tight knit battle with Memphis. They're currently in fifth. Memphis is in fourth, 1 point clear. Lou City is only 2 wins, 3 losses in their last five. They are way better at home, 8 wins to 5 losses and 2 draws. Than they are on the road, where there's 6 wins, 6 losses, and 5 ties, almost even all across the board. They're on the road, and it's got or Lou City has got to get this momentum going. Can they find Uncle Mo to hang out for a few more weeks to get them up to fourth? They play at home, last home match this weekend versus Hartford. Then, oh no, I'm sorry, not the last home match. My apologies. They're at home for Hartford this weekend, and then final game of the season at home versus Tampa. So, Lou City, this is your golden window to make it in. Hartford is trash and is out of the playoffs. That is an absolute must win for Lou City. If they do not win against Hartford, Lou City fans, go and book your tickets to Memphis because that's where we're going. Tampa, a huge match that weekend. Or I'm sorry, Tampa has a huge match this weekend with Pittsburgh. You know, the
Which,
winner of that could determine 1 and 2, right? What are we gonna say?
yeah, I'm gonna say this: one, Lou City needs to win out, but the Lou City needs to become Pittsburgh fans
Yes,
and
big Pittsburgh fan.
Detroit fans
Yep.
in case Lou doesn't secure home playoffs. Because Memphis, outside of Indy, is your closest
Mm-hmm.
opponent. Well, Memphis and Detroit might be about the same, but they're
I've
close
never thought
opponents.
about that, but yeah, you're probably right. Really.
You want Detroit as the possible eighth seed and Pittsburgh facing each other because those are both easier drives than Miami.
Yep.
So
And
even if they don't secure it, you want to be. I know Blue City fans will hate this. You want to be cheering on Detroit and Pittsburgh because
especially Pittsburgh.
yes, especially Pittsburgh. But
Tampa, if they can beat Pittsburgh this weekend, that could be a very interesting scenario the following weekend, right? Where Tampa may not have a whole lot to play for in that trip to Louisville. They could rest a lot of players, and that could be
well, no,
another
no, no.
opportunity.
They would have a lot to play for because if Tampa wins,
Mm-hmm.
they're tied on the Shield.
Right.
Tampa would have the goal differential,
Mm-hmm.
but Pittsburgh then plays Detroit.
Which is
So
very difficult. Is it on the road or at Pittsburgh?
they're in Detroit. And that could be a make or break game for Detroit.
Right. Because could they get to second? Detroit? I didn't look.
No. They're at ninth right now.
Oh,
They're a point behind the real. They're a
I thought
point
they were at
behind
the,
the
oh
real
negative.
Miami. But
Get them out of here.
Detroit has the second or the Detroit is one of the better defensive teams.
Right.
Their offense ain't that great, but they're one of the better defensive teams. So the Riverhounds would need to win because, like I said, Tampa has the goal difference, so it'd be interesting. I don't see a scenario if Tampa loses against the Riverhounds. I see them resting against Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
If they win, that's different because then the Shield's on the line.
Right. So, again, Blue City, we're cheering for Pittsburgh. Let's get our terrible towels ready. But let's also look at things from Memphis' side, right? 1 point clear right now of Blue City. They host El Paso this weekend, and then they head to New Mexico to close out the season. El Paso is clinging to 7th place in the West right now, and New Mexico is fighting like heck to get up into that 8th spot and to make the playoffs. I can see Memphis either winning both of those games because they've been a grinded out kind of a team, or what I think is more likely, they lose both of those games. Memphis is 2 wins, 2 losses, and 1 tie in the last 5. They are not on a hot streak. They are very average coming down the stretch here. And, overall, they have been better this season at home. 6 wins, 6 losses, 4 ties at home versus on the road. Memphis has actually been way better on the road. 7 wins, 3 losses, and 6 ties on the road. So honestly, if you're a Lou City fan, maybe you hope that Memphis can split, and you do have to go down to Memphis because Memphis has a worse record at home and you have a better road record. I don't know. That feels like a weird thing to think about, but if I'm looking at the schedule, who we play and when and where, I'm going to take both teams to split 4 points each. And I think Lou City fans, let's go in and book our hotel rooms for Memphis the weekend of October 21st, because I just think that's how it's going to close out.
It's going to be interesting. It's chaos. I think you let chaos happen because they also. No, Memphis owes goal difference.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things pointing their direction.
Yeah, so we'll just have to see. I think it's going to be interesting because I think the road can kill them. New Mexico did just squeeze out a win over Lou City.
Oh, come on. That wasn't a squeeze out. They suffocated them. And we'll use that as a jumping off point to go to
what is a suffocate? Line. What is a suffocate?
It was 2-0, Lou City losing at New Mexico United. This is an alarming setback for Lou City fans. Like, I am ringing the 5 alarm bells, like, call the fire department. Like, this is a rallying call for how bad this team can be. This was embarrassing. Losing 2-0 on the road to New Mexico United. Are you kidding me? Lou City continually missed opportunities. They had crucial errors all over the field, but especially on defense. They could have secured 4th place. They didn't capitalize on their opportunities, and it was just disappointing. Yeah, like I don't know how to keep saying it, John.
What, allowing a goal, a man up, and then not scoring at all with 2 men up?
Yeah, that's embarrassing. Like, come on now. We've got to be better. Like, we have to have a better attack.
Allowing a goal, a man up is I've broken it down before. Having a man advantage is really not an advantage at all, especially when the other team has the advantage, as New Mexico was up a goal in that, so they can do a lot of counterattacking in that sense. 2 men is different.
Yes, very, that's not very different.
And it wasn't like, and it was towards the end of the game, but it wasn't in the sense of, it was not in the sense of like 2 minutes left. You had 15 minutes, and you couldn't get a goal up 2 men.
And I don't know how many times Coach Cruz can keep going to this well. He talked in the post-game interview, oh, we're so disappointed. Like, oh, this was embarrassing. Like, I'm tired of hearing it, Coach Cruz.
I think
get it together.
I think
get
what
your
killed
team
him
ready.
was that he made 2 subs at the half.
I agree. I think that was not the time to make those subs. Yes.
I have an issue with 2 subs. I have an issue with subbing at the half in general, unless a player is hurt. Type thing, they like finish out, whatever, that's fine. Finish out the half, if they're hurt, you make that subbing, then that is fine. But unless you genuinely think this player is gonna like revamp you, which you can make the argument with Elijah Winder that he's like their spark plug. He's kind of been the spark plug this year,
right?
But like Owen Dam,
like, what are we doing? That was a dumb move. I will call it what it was. That was a mistake by the coaching staff, by Coach Cruz, of making that substitution at that time. Briefly, while I have it here, University of Louisville has come all the way back to take the lead, 3-2 now over UMKC as time is expiring in that matchup. But I wanted I want Coach Cruz to get this team right and get them ready for what should be an urgent finish to the season. Like
Like
you've got to come in with some kind of momentum. Otherwise, when we go down to Memphis in a couple of weeks as a fan base, it's going to be an embarrassment. We're going to get beat on a terrible field by a bad team.
like how does a side that's down a man, where do they lose? They go down a man in the 53rd, 54th, and then another one in the 75th. How does a side that's down that only has 32% possession have more shots on target and more big chances than a full 11 side?
That's a
Like
great question.
that's
I
even
wish
the
I had an
thing.
answer.
That's even the thing with like Lexington's loss to Knoxville up a man. They still like were trying. Like if you looked at the stats, they very much had the man advantage. Like you can see it on the stats. And the only stat that shows man advantage to Lou in the second half is they had 5 more shots, not shots on target, 5 more shots and 68% possession. They committed more fouls. Yes, they had more corners. Shocker. But they had 0 big chances. They
Right.
passed the ball more. You're on target. But you had 8 shots off target out of your 9. You didn't even have the most accurate long balls. How do you have a man advantage and not have more accurate long balls?
Do you see why this is maddening to me? Like, this is not the result that a playoff team, a team that should be pushing the top three, right? But we can't even take care of the seventh or eighth best team in the West. It's not acceptable. Coach Cruz, get your boys together, regroup, recover like you said you were going to do, and let's
Jimmy,
close out the season with 2 wins.
they were the 3rd best team, or they're the 10th best team. They were either 10th or 11th when Lou faced them.
Okay, well they're
the
seventh
West.
now or eighth place now.
They are New Mexico is 10th right now.
I thought they were eighth. I misread then. Anyway,
They are 2 points off of 8th.
okay, that's what it was. They're within striking distance.
Like insanely tight. Like Rio Grande is at 39 points, and like El Paso is 7th at 43. And there's 4 teams in that zone. And then there is a legit 20-point drop, and then there's Vegas.
Can they relegate Vegas? Can they really do that?
People,
Can we forcefully relegate them?
Fuego. Fuego only has an 8. Fuego has an 8-point gap. 20
I would watch
points.
that game.
20 points. That is so. They have 3 wins and 10 draws. The fact they have 10 draws is shocking.
I can't wait for Vegas to get beat in the Open Cup. Oh, I can't wait.
And there's been some really bad teams before. There was a Derby County side that in the Prem in like the mid 2000s. They only won 1 game, or they drew 1 game. They had only like Jesus 1 Christ. Point. It was bad.
Good God. Can you imagine how bad that team that they drew against was?
That was like their 3rd game of the season too. So it was like a fluke of a game because I think the team finished in the top 5 that they drew against.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what I like want to tell people all the time is even the worst team can get a good result on any given day. But it's a season that will show how truly bad they are or good they are. But even in the Prem, you can have a team that doesn't belong that sucks. So calm yourselves with with 2nd division and 3rd division. You can get a little mad at NWSL because they're top.
Right.
You can get a little more mad with them. But like Lex and Lou, you gotta remember they're 2nd and 3rd divisions.
I still think Vegas needs to be forcefully relegated.
Vegas, I think, should be relegated because it balances the leaks.
Yes. Bring them on down. Can you imagine Lexington at Vegas next year? What?
You mean a cheap away trip?
Yeah. Let's go. We'll
Because for
take the
those who
show.
don't know, Vegas is arguably like the cheapest place to fly, regardless where you're coming from,
Yeah, they got flights
because
everywhere.
they want you. They want you to
Uh-huh.
save as much money as possible. Hotels are decently cheap in Vegas too. Everything is really cheap in Vegas. It really is.
Affordable. It's not cheap. It's
But
affordable.
well, affordable. It's not like here. Let me look right now. It's much cheaper than going to like
And don't look on like Allegiant
Orlando.
where it's like $50 no matter where you're going.
Right
Look on like
now, if I were
a
to leave
reputable
right
website.
now, well,
A
Allegiant's
reputable airline.
118
Oh my god.
for a week. This is flying from Lexington, mind you, so it's
Okay.
tiny airport. Tiny airport. You could do a round trip for a week, being in Vegas for a week, on American for 463 from Lexington. So a small airport, so you're paying a
Wow.
little more for that. From Cincy, like a legit airport, you
That's got to be one of
got
those $50 Allegiant flights.
you got Frontier and stuff like
Oh,
that.
I forget those
Um,
existed.
I don't know how bad Frontier is. Frontier, Spirit. Uh,
Also, shout out to Frontier, Spirit, and all of those. If you're looking to sponsor a podcast, I'd love to work with you.
American Airlines 304 for one
Wow.
person with one stop. So, very cheap. Now, granted, I'm willing to fly Spirit or whatever for that short duration because they do
Right.
no stops. They were no stops. The other ones were 2 stops or whatever.
Wow.
Anyways, I'm getting off topic, but that's
Yeah, I was about to pull us back.
that would bring the league, that would balance USL a lot more in terms of geography.
In terms of what there, Jeff?
Geography, because Vegas would be a Western team.
In
You would
League
have,
One.
in League One, you would have Spokane, Fuego, Vegas, Santa Barbara, NoCo, Omaha. That's 6. You can technically throw in Madison to that.
Oof, that'd be a long trip.
But they're the next isolated team, so that's 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the rest and taking out North Carolina. So it's about more balanced than it is right now, where they only have 3 teams west of the Mississippi.
Well, I'm in favor of it. How about you, sir? Let's make it happen. I'll make some phone calls. Overall, though,
I do think, I don't know why they haven't done this of the bottom of one league, top of the other league.
Maybe that's what the rel will be. The pro rel here in a couple of years if that gets off the table.
I really don't think we're ever going to have traditional pro rel if we have it. The U.S. cares way too much about playoffs. Way too much about this potential winner takes all, winner goes up or winner stays type thing to just go, oh yeah, you sucked. You have no shot at defending yourself from a lower league. They just care too much. There's too much drama that you could make up. Too much hype, anticipation. See the team survive, or are we gonna make the jump stuff that you could draw around it for the U.S. to go. Nah, we're just gonna go. Yeah, you scored the least amount of points. You scored the most amount of points. You auto switch.
Well, and I think it could work in certain degrees, but we're getting way off topic. By the way, final U of L 3, UMKC 2. So congratulations to the Cardinals. But speaking of that other team in Louisville, the men's team, you need victories. Let's rack them up. Let's get a little momentum going. Let's start cooking a little bit here, and let's see what happens. Mm-hmm. Speaking of a Louisville team that did not do any cooking this past weekend, Racing Louisville. What a devastating and damaging 1-0 loss at Chicago, with controversy abound after video review decisions going against Racing on one call that allowed a Chicago goal and then disallowed a penalty on Louisville in another one. The defeat, as we've kind of already talked about, the defeat leaves Racing Louisville 3 points outside of the playoffs with 2 games remaining, and their playoff fates are now, as I mentioned earlier, no longer their own hands. Racing controlled play for stretches and had some opportunities to make goals to find that equalizer, but they just couldn't. Their scoring woes, which have been well documented on this show and so many others throughout this season, continued, and this was their third straight match of not scoring a goal. John, when you were looking through and preparing for this match, what did you see? What is wrong with them?
They don't have an attack. They're not attacking. They're not shooting.
Right. Like, what was the shot? I meant to pull that up, the shot chart from that game.
Um,
I'll race you. Shots. Chicago, 14. Oh, well. Racing did have 22 shots, according to the site.
how many on target?
3 to 5 in favor of Racing. So they had some.
Sorry, they had shots.
Yeah.
They didn't have threatening shots.
Yeah, only 5 on target.
That, here's the thing. And it also depends on the stat keeper, because some stat keepers literally...
Yeah, that doesn't seem accurate for what I saw.
Any ball that, goes across the back line, they'll be like, that was a shot. Unless it was, very obviously tapped out or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If they launch it, or they just send it in the box, especially if it's in the box, and it could be sent sky high over, or flick back, whatever. It's that's a shot. Some are that's not a shot. So it all depends on the stat keeper. But the fact that they only had 5 on target just proves how it is. There's shooting, and then there's actually shooting. And Racing is not actually shooting. They're just kicking the ball at the net.
Right. And Chicago has been abysmal all year, right? They've let up 41 goals. They've let up 41 goals. Are you kidding me?
They've let up 41 goals, and they are 2 points out. Racing is the only team not in the playoffs with a positive goal differential.
I mean, Houston does have a 0 goal differential, but correct. Meanwhile, Washington Spirit have a -2 goal differential, and they're comfortably in 5th right now.
Because you know what they do? They don't lose games 1-0.
Unlike Racing, who, again, Racing
will dominate a game. They will score 3 and they'll shut you out. But then they'll lose or draw the next ones.
Right. In not great fashion, right? And I called them the lame stars. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I'm regretting that one after seeing the scoreline, but hey, whatever. This is not a match that they should have lost, but I really kind of question the number of shots because I don't keep track of stats when I'm watching a game or rewatching the highlights or anything, but 22 seems a lot more than I thought that they would have had. But it's not all lost, as we kind of talked a little bit. They can still get into the playoffs with some help. They play at home against Orlando on Friday night. And then they hit the road to play San Diego, where San Diego could have some things wrapped up by that one. So there's still wiggle room for Racing, but they've got to find some offense. They've got to put some goals in the back of the net. But speaking of a team that did put some goals in the back of the net, as we kind of already had hinted towards earlier, Lexington Sporting Club drew 2-2 with forward Madison this past weekend. Some of the things I kind of want to highlight: the youthful performances. Lexington showcased a lot of their younger talent against Madison, especially 22-year-old Austin Casey and Kimball Jackson. Causey, thank you. And Kimball Jackson, who is not only 19 years old, both played significant roles in the game. And the draw really came at a good time for Lexington, who had kind of been on a slide in points at least. So securing points against a team like Madison is always a good thing. It was really good, strong defensive effort. In the first half, Lexington's defense, led by Austin, held firm despite facing a multitude of shots. They probably had 22 shots in that game. I still don't know how Racing had 22. Kazi made impressive saves to keep Lexington in the game. And in the second half, they made a great run. Nico Brown and Diouf played really well. They played some of the best attacking efforts that I've seen them play. John, as you were watching it, what were some things that you noticed from this Lexington game?
One, I mentioned this earlier. Causey played exceptionally well. He made 7 saves on the night, 5 in just the first half. He made 2 mistakes. The man has not played in goal since April. He's played a bit with the U23 side, but he has not played in goal in the league since April. And his 2 mistakes, I would say only really one was a mistake. One was bad luck, as he was trying to secure the ball, it just slipped through his body. And that's kind of more on his defense, kind of a good run by the Madison player. I'm forgetting his name. Madison presses. They will attack the box. And so they attack the box. You could say the second goal was on Causey. That was more of a mistake. But like I've said in my write-up, it's kind of a very fixable mistake because he gets his body there. It's saved. The chip is a little off. That doesn't go in. So it's like you could heavily debate the second goal he gave up. But overall, I think Lexington was the better side. And this is against a Madison side, as I mentioned earlier, that has not secured playoffs. That is only now 2 points. They have a 2-point cushion from Tormenta. So, and Madison plays someone. I think they play a playoff team too. Madison plays NOCO next,
which is not going to be an easy victory.
Who is battling for the Shield themselves. NOCO is only a point off of the Shield. So it's going to be very interesting how they do it. Because Tormenta is playing Omaha. So this is going to be very interesting.
Well, and Diouf scored in the 74th minute, making what was it? His 15th goal of the season, which is a really impressive mark for any USL player.
He becomes the 6th player ever.
Yep.
To do it in the league,
this
is a league. This is a league that 3 of those players, counting Diouf, have done that this year.
Mm-hmm.
So only in the 4 years previous, only 3 players had ever scored more than 15 in a season. Yes, you could chalk that up to this season's a little longer with more games. COVID could have affected that, but he's the 6th player to do it.
Right.
And it was a beauty of a goal. And then Jackson does how most defenders get their goals, picking up scraps.
Yep. The youngest was he the youngest to score in franchise history?
He's the youngest. He is 19 years old and some change. I believe Diouf was the youngest prior. Because it's either Diouf or Balogun. Smart's our oldest scorer.
Ouch.
Owen's older.
Speaking of getting old, ouch.
Tate's a bit older. I think it was either Diouf or Balogun was it before. I might be forgetting someone. So maybe. But it's
has he scored this season?
He scored he nutmegged the Red Bulls defender down in Chattanooga and then buried it. One of the better goals of the year from us. But it's Kimball now, and he's 19. And he's played amazing these past 2 matches. Really holding his own, type of thing. Very much a attacking wingback.
Mm-hmm.
He's shown. He's very much in the attacking game, so it's a lot of hope. Kimball, the younger guys are the guys I'd be very surprised if they leave. Besides, like Diouf, so like Gonzalez, Jackson, Mane, Delamini. I feel like we're going to return more people than we think, but at the same time, I'm not. Don't quote me on that.
Well,
So
and I want to echo that kind of optimism that you have there. Like the future is looking very good for Lexington, especially if Causey and Jackson can stick around. I think as fans, we need to continue to push them or to support them. I'm sorry, especially as the final home game is against North Carolina. They're still trying to secure their playoff spots, so why not play a little bit of a spoiler, huh? Be a nice way for
North
Nacho to
Carolina
get his.
is in. So I would mention North Carolina is in the playoffs. They are secured firm in the playoffs. They're battling for the Shield.
We're battling for the Shield.
So I think it'd be interesting. I don't think both sides are going to go into this with like necessarily their top 11 per se. Like as much as I love Causey, he's the backup keeper by terms of the stats this year. So it'd be very interesting. I think both sides are not going to go in with their top 11, but they're going to go maybe with their top 7 or their top 8 because North Carolina is still going to want to win the Shield, I think.
You would imagine, like they're on their way up.
Also,
take the title with you, kind of a thing, right?
Well, they're also in the room where it's a playoff bye or not because NoCo is in third,
right?
I think right now, and the third place team does not get a playoff bye. Only top 2 do. So there's a lot. It's so tight with the top 3. It's a decision of Shield, home field guaranteed, and also a playoff bye. So North Carolina could come into this with their top 11. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a very interesting match.
I would think they would. I think they would not want to have a Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin situation, or at least the league shouldn't want that. If you don't get that reference, I'm sorry. I'll explain it in another video. If you do get that reference, welcome. You're old like me. I just think it's an opportunity for North Carolina to get some points. And, Lexington, Nacho, come on now. This is your time. Play spoiler and just go and play your last home game with everything in front of you. But
these next 2, you should play spoiler.
Yes, you should.
And they have the capability to do so.
Yes, they have all the capability. They've got the young guys who've got spry legs still. Like, let's go.
We've taken it to North Carolina before.
Mm-hmm.
We played our second ever game. We scored on them first. Then they got 2 goals, and then we drew with them, I'm pretty sure. I haven't done the deep dive. But I'm pretty sure we drew with them back in like July. So,
well, make sure you come back on Wednesday's show for that full breakdown of that Lexington, North Carolina game, Racing Louisville versus Orlando Pride, and then Lou City versus, oh my God, I just dropped who they play, Hartford, for all of those breakdowns, for all that action coming up later this weekend. But John, let's close out today's episode by running through our weekly college review. I'll kick us off here with the Bellarmine men, who started last week with a 1-1 draw with IUPUI, the Jaguars. Bellarmine showed a lot of resilience and had to fight back from a 1-0 deficit earlier in the match to get the draw. Chris Shust, Shust, scored his first goal of the season to equalize it for the Knights. Their offense was much improved in this game, and we'll talk about that in a second in their second game. Freshman Alex Harvey recorded his first collegiate draw with an assist on the goal. And young players continue to step up for the Knights. Um, overall, that was a pretty good performance. It was on the road, so I'm glad to see them continue to compete for that ASUN title. And then things got crazy on Sunday. I think it was Sunday. For the dramatic 1-0 victory over Queens for the Knights. And in that one, yes, Knights do checkmate Queens. See what I did there? Little chess thing. Nope, he's shaking his head. It's okay. Shust scores again, this time with only 4 seconds left in regulation, dealing a heartbreaker to Queens and getting revenge for Bellarmine, who suffered a late loser against Lipscomb last week. His goal gave him back-to-back matches with goals. And overall, it was a really solid performance for Bellarmine. Their defense, especially, limited Queens' opportunities and really helped secure the shutout. Matthew Brovich made some big saves and really helped move Bellarmine's line up because he continued to give deep, what's the word, like kickoffs? What's the word I'm looking for? Sure, into the attacking end for Bellarmine, making it much easier for them to push forward, keep their lines up. And this type of win really shows the resolve that the Bellarmine men have right now. They need to continue to ride this momentum from these 2 games as they aim to continue towards that ASUN conference tournament that ASUN regular season title. Their next match is on the road at Florida Gulf Coast, and currently, the Bellarmine men have a record of 2 wins, 2 losses, 5 draws, and they are 1-1-1 in the ASUN, giving them best for 4th place.
Pump the brakes on that little title talk.
Hey man, it was exciting. It really was. Like it was good to see Bellarmine men like performing as well as they had been.
They had a good week.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes a good week turns into a good month. You never know. Speaking of record-setting performances, the Bellarmine women have their first conference victory last week. A 4-2 victory over Jacksonville. Yes, the Knights slayed the Dolphins. They scored 4 goals, which was the highest they had ever scored at this level of competition, meaning ASUN conference play in Division One. They got contributions from 4 different players, really showing the depth that this team has. When you look at, oh my, when you look at some of their senior leadership that they have, multiple of them scoring goals. They had some young players who also scored their goal, 2 of the goals in that match. But overall, it was a great effort. Congratulations on getting your first conference victory at the D1 level for the Bellarmine women. They then followed that up with a 1-1 draw against North Florida. And please, if somebody can tell me what an Osprey is, I would love to know. Um, when you look at this game, Bellarmine scored the goal by who's that? Or Zarco? God, I butchered that. I'm so sorry. And she is really emerging as a player to be watched as we move through the rest of the ASUN conference tournament play. Their goalkeeper had 6 first half saves. Despite heavy pressure, she played really well. Extending the run of 4 matches unbeaten for the Knights. So it was a really good week to be a Bellarmine fan. Their women currently sit at 4 wins, 4 losses, 5 draws, and they have a 1, 2, and 3 record in the ASUN, which is currently good enough for 9th. John, talk to me about another ASUN school, EKU.
So EKU had a really good week. They continued their dominance from beating up Kennesaw State on the road by coming home and demolishing North Florida. Just Lydia Hervier got her first ever collegiate goal. She's a senior defender. She got a PK, but Jimmy Anderson got a brace in that match. The defense continues to shine really good. Defense held strong against Jacksonville, where they really dominated, but Jacksonville keeper had their day. So the Colonels currently are rolling pretty good in the A-Sun. They're 3-1-2. Only dropped one match so far. They're playing really good, but they'll have a really tough test coming up. They'll first face Northern Alabama on Thursday. Not that really tough of a test, but then they'll take on Central Arkansas, who is second in the A-Sun. That is their really big, tough test coming up.
Fun fact about Central Arkansas, they play on a football field that is purple and gray striped. It hurts your eyes. Anyways, John, what about the big boys, Big Blue?
Big boys ain't big boys.
Thank you. That was well done.
So for those who don't know, the men have imploded.
Absolutely imploded.
They haven't imploded in a way that is like, oh my gosh, it's like mind-numbing implosion because they're losing like 1-0 games. So they're having like one slip up defensively, and then they can't score an offense. So they've been shut out for the fourth straight game after falling 1-0 or 1-0, on the road at number 3 UCF for their only game last week. They just couldn't they only had 3 shots on target, couldn't find any sort of offense. They're 0-3 in the Sun Belt. This is a squad that did not lose a game last year, and now they can't buy a win or buy
shows
a goal.
How fast this can turn around.
They have been shut out for 373 minutes. Their last goal was scored in like the 77th, 78th minute against Lipscomb, which was 5 matches ago. So they have 4 full games of no goals, and then add in like the 13 minutes. But we'll see, because they're facing another side that has fallen from grace in terms of preseason ranking in Indiana. This was supposed to be their big game of the year. It's not a Sun Belt game. It's a big game. At a time, this was a top 5 matchup at one point in time, looking down the roster. Neither of these teams are receiving votes anymore. Neither of these teams are in the top 25. So at this point, Kentucky just wants to bounce and get a goal at least.
They need a goal.
Facing Indiana tomorrow night at home. And then they'll head down to Coastal Carolina to continue Sun Belt play on Saturday night.
Quick, John, can you name the mascot of Coastal Carolina?
Some sort of rooster.
The Chanticleers. Come on. that painful silence is John staring a hole in my soul. Thank you.
UK women's, though, remain unbeaten. They got another great result over a ranked school, beating Alabama.
How are they not ranked?
I don't know how they're not getting votes.
Like, it doesn't make sense.
By the RPI, they are 30th in the country.
They're better than 30th.
For those who don't know, RPI is this mathematical thing NCAA has come up with to determine like leveling rankings of stuff. The United Soccer Coaches doesn't exactly match that, kind of, but it's not exact. But in that, Kentucky is 30th. To be fair, they haven't played amazing squads, but this was a double historic night, beating number 9 Alabama at home. But Jordan Rhodes set the all-time Wildcats record with her 45th goal. She scored both goals in this game, tying it and then breaking it. She is now the all-time leading scorer at the school, both men and women's, from what I can find. And the men's is actually really low. It's like in the 20s.
Jeez.
20s or low 30s. Granted, this record book is from 2021 was the last time I could find it was updated. So it could be out of date. But from what I found by UK's own website, um, Jordan Rose is now the all-time leading scorer with much of the season remaining uh, in UK history when she got her second in the 70th minute for the 75th minute for the game winner. Alabama had equalized in the 70th. And then they take on two Tennessee schools hosting going down on the road to take on the Vols before hosting Vanderbilt.
Should be an interesting week for the UK women then. Quite the, when you're looking at the Bluegrass Soccer Cast College Cup standings, there were two teams in the top 5 at the big schools, right? There was UK women, and then there was U of L men. Sorry, the U of L men are definitely not going to be in the top 5 this week after an embarrassing 3-0 loss to Virginia last week. Virginia dominated the game. They controlled possession from beginning to end, scoring 2 goals in the first half, adding a third in the 71st minute. They dominated the shooting. They outshot Louisville 16-7, and they secured their second clean sheet of the season. Overall, Louisville's offense just continues to ping pong up and down. Some matches it's really good, some matches it's really bad. The coaching staff seems to be really frustrated. Coach John Michael Hayden is likely frustrated by his team's inability to threaten Virginia's goalkeeper. Sorry, especially in the last few minutes of the match, as they had several opportunities to score, but they just couldn't put one past their keeper. And U of L needs to rebound quickly because they can't have that kind of an ACC loss linger. There's lots of room for improvement for this team. They still have NCAA tournament opportunities in front of them. Heading into this recording, the University of Louisville sat at 6-2-1 and 1-2-1 in the ACC Atlantic Division. That's good enough for 4th. Now, as we did talk about earlier, they did beat UMKC. That will be in our write-up for next week's college recap, but it will be added to their College Cup standings for this week as I close those tonight. But if we have a good, we have to have a bad, right? That just seems to be the typical trend in our state, right? The U of L women had a very bad 3-0 loss to number 10 Notre Dame. Really tough opponent. Notre Dame is one of the best teams in the country right now, especially on the women's side. They jumped on the Cardinals early, had a 1-0 lead going into half, and then added 2 more pretty quickly into the second half. The Notre Dame goalkeeper was really good, but the U of L keeper, Floyd, wasn't bad. She made 8 saves. I know it's kind of weird to say, you made 8 saves, but you gave up 3 goals. But nonetheless, they played a pretty good game considering the level of their opponent. They need to continue to show their ability to compete with those top tier teams. But Notre Dame, really good. Not much that U of L women could have done. They are U of L women are currently 2 wins, 6 losses, 4 draws, and they are 1-2-1 in the ACC, which is 10th currently.
So then we moved on to Moorhead, who had a decent week as well. They drew with Eastern Illinois. This was a gut punch, actually, really, because Eastern Illinois scored with just 26 seconds left in the game to tie it. Colleen Swift got her 4th goal of the year in it. Um, you know, the it was a very much defensive affair. It's a second straight draw for the Eagles, but it's the first time they've surrendered a goal in 3 matches. So take as you will. Then they dropped the game. They fell to Southern Indiana, and they were really their worst enemy in this one. They let an own goal early, and then Indiana got another late, and they couldn't climb out of that because they're not that great of an offensive team. They're very defensive, so they just weren't able to climb out of that hole they kind of dug for themselves. They'll look to bounce back as they take on Southeast Missouri
Okay.
in their only game this week. They are second in the Ohio Valley Conference somehow. The Ohio Valley has not gone off to that great of a start, but they're 2-1-2. So they've only lost one game in the Ohio Valley, so that's kind of why. But the Ohio Valley as a whole doesn't really have a dominant team right now.
Now, speaking of the Ohio Valley, a former Ohio Valley member, my Murray State Racers, they had a rough week. Not as bad as other weeks previously, but they had a 1-0 loss to the University of Illinois at Chicago. That ended their 3-match unbeaten streak, so they could not extend that to 4. The game-winning goal came in the 20th minute for UIC. And really, overall, the Racers didn't really show a lot of resilience, and they didn't show a whole lot of determination. And I get it, a midweek long road game, but if you're going to compete in the Missouri Valley, this is the type of games that you need to get results from. They need to find their offense again. They need to find an opportunity to continue to get more shots and continue to put them, on frame at least. Um, but not a great result for the Racers in that 1-0 defeat. Now, they did manage a 1-1 draw with or Valparaiso, which was a hard fought draw for the Racers. And it was a rematch of the semifinals from the Missouri Valley Conference tournament last year. Both matches happening at Valpo. Um, Early lead and quick responses for Valparaiso was how they scored and what they continued to do against the Racers most of the match. However, Murray State was able to swiftly respond every single time. Um, Mary Hardy had a flick on pass to Sydney Eder in the box to level the score 5 minutes after Valpo had scored. So it was good to see that the offense was moving, passes looked much crisper. But in the end, there were several missed opportunities again for the Racers. But this was an overall better performance by them, and really it's encouraging for Racer fans as we head into the stretch run of conference play. Racers will return to home pitch at Cutchin Field to face Northern Iowa on Thursday at 3 p.m. Currently, the Racers are 2 wins, 7 losses, 4 draws, and are 0-1-4 in the Missouri Valley, which is currently good enough for 9th.
And then we jump to NKU, who, listen, Lex fans can complain all they want about late draws. NKU has lost a lot of games on a late goal, especially the men. First they beat Western Illinois, who is a non-conference opponent, on Tuesday. This was a comeback win that saw them equalize the game in the 18th minute after letting in a goal in the 7th. Sam Robinson got his own. They got kind of a little payback for previous games. Sam Robinson got a goal in the 89th minute. They would dominate this whole match. That one goal to Western Illinois was kind of a fluke. But then when they face a conference foe, it's was not that much better. NKU has only won one game in conference. They've lost three. They dropped 2-1 on the road to Cleveland State. They would let in both of these goals after going up one with a Sam Robinson PK in the 47th. Cleveland would equalize in the 54th, and then they would get a gut punch of a goal in the 90th minute. Again for NKU. And it wasn't that great of a week either for the women. They dropped their only match 3-1 against Milwaukee. They were bound to break. It's only the third match the women have allowed more. They have allowed multiple goals. It's the first match they've ever lost by a multiple goal deficit. It was just the defense was bound to crack eventually. They cracked against Milwaukee. We'll see how they bounce back as they are kind of a home and away split. They'll take on Green Bay. They'll go on the road against Green Bay on Thursday, but then they'll host Cleveland State on Sunday. So it's kind of interesting. The women are doing much better. They are still waiting for a Horizon League win, but they have 3 draws in conference, so we'll see.
So, John, then we'll close it out today with the WKU Lady Toppers, who had a pretty good weekend. They had a 2-0 victory over Chicago State in a non-conference matchup. WKU earned a very important victory to improve to 3. I lost my note there. 3-2-7 on the season overall. And this was something that they needed, a match they needed to win. It halted their losing streak. And it was, like I said, much needed victory. Only the third one of the season. But hey, they're doing pretty well in conference play. The Lady Toppers got goals by Olivia Cook and Aspen Searchy to provide the offense, spreading out some of those the scores. Or one was early and one was a little bit later in the match. WKU dominated the match with an 11-0 shooting edge. They can control the play. They control the tempo of the match. They really, really look to be trending upward. The Lady Toppers earned their 6th shutout, this time by Emma Tompkins, who made her season debut. Another good, solid defensive performance. But in this game, WKU started 8 new players, allowing some of their veterans to rest, and they still performed really, really well on the offensive end. They really showed a balanced effort and a balanced attack. And WKU truly seems to be finding their form, and I look forward to kind of seeing what they do heading down the stretch here in Conference USA play. But John, with all of that out of the way, that will end today's episode of the Bluegrass Soccer Cast. If you like the show and you want to continue to support us, we do have a Buy Us Coffee account. We appreciate anyone who has donated before. You can scan that QR code right up there or right over here at any point during our show. This show will always be free. That's just kind of how we do things around here, but we do appreciate all of the support. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Make sure you're following us on all our social media channels, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, etc. And those handles are at BG Soccercast. Make sure to give us a listen on all your favorite podcasting platforms like Spotify, Google, YouTube, Apple, iHeartRadio, and so many more. And while you're on those platforms, make sure to like, follow, subscribe, share, and engage in general with us on those platforms. We'd love to read all those comments. Make sure you join our Discord. If you're not already in there, go back to our Twitter. It should be right at the top for you to join our Discord channel. We have some pretty good conversations in our Discord chats. But with all that out of the way, I'm Jimmy, that's John, and we will see you on the next one.